Welcome to Module 7. This chapter, Research Questions and Hypotheses, introduces us to writing the research questions or the hypotheses for a research proposal. Research questions or hypotheses are used to narrow the purpose statement down to predictions about what will be learned or questions that will be answered by your research. In this chapter, you will learn principles for designing research questions in qualitative research, quantitative research, and mixed methods research, as well as use study scripts to help you write your own. If you plan to conduct qualitative research, you should state research questions instead of objectives or hypotheses. These research questions should include a central question and sub-questions. The central question is really a broad question that asks for an exploration of a central phenomenon or a concept in the study. Each central question will also contain sub-questions. These should narrow the focus of your study, but also leave opening for questioning. It's possible that you could have 1 to 2 central questions in qualitative research. From these, you should draw no more than 5 to 7 sub-questions in good practice. The central questions should relate to the specific qualitative strategy of inquiry that you're planning to use. You can begin your qualitative research questions with words like what or how to convey that you're working on an open and emerging design. Remember that qualitative research naturally looks at the how and why of a question. The verbs in your research questions should also be of the exploratory nature and convey the language of an emerging design. Remember that research questions will often be molded throughout the study in a manner that's consistent with emerging design. You may think of things during your study that you've not considered before, but that could become a key part of your research. So be willing to be a little bit flexible with that. I recommend using open-ended questions. You want to specify the participants and the research site for the study if you've not already given that information. An example of a qualitative research question might be, what are the perceptions of high school administrators on the practice of classroom inclusion? Notice I use the word what to indicate that it's a qualitative, more of a why things are happening, and also that I use the word perceptions because I really want to get a deep understanding of high school administrators and how they feel about the practice of classroom inclusion. This means I'll likely interview these people and I'll probably code the data. I'll look for an emerging design, things that I continue to see over and over again that might lead me to explore different areas of the qualitative research question. If you plan to conduct quantitative research, you can have research questions or you can have hypotheses. These questions should inquire about the relationship among variables that the investigator seeks to know. If you choose to compose hypotheses, these can be predictions that you make about the expected outcomes of relationships among the variables. It's important to note that the use of variables, research questions, or hypotheses in quantitative designs is usually limited to 3 approaches. First, the researcher may compare an independent variable to see its impact on the dependent variable. Second, the researcher may relate 1 or more independent variables to 1 or more dependent variables. Or lastly, the researcher may describe responses to the independent, the mediating, or the dependent variable. Quantitative research that makes use of hypotheses contain 2 basic forms. The first is a null hypothesis. This makes a prediction that no relationship or no significant relationship exists between groups of variables. For example, if I want to look at the relationship between age and teaching pedagogy, my null hypothesis would be that there is no significant difference in the teaching pedagogy of individuals according to their age. An alternate hypothesis makes a prediction about the expected outcomes, basing this on previous literature and studies on the topic. In a study that looks at the meaning of gender identity for religious and secular Jewish and Arab women in an Israeli society, an alternate hypothesis might be that religious women with salient gender identity are less sociopolitically active than secular women with salient gender identity. This example is one that can be found in your book along with other alternative hypotheses. Let's move on to those of you who are wanting to conduct a mixed methods study. To be completely honest with you, researchers do not typically see specific research questions or hypotheses in mixed methods research, but discussion is now emerging concerning their use. Mixed methods studies should begin with a very strong research question that's going to shape the overall design of the study. Because mixed methods relies on both quantitative and qualitative research, it's a really good idea to include a combination of these 2 in your research questions and your hypotheses. find that mixed methods research questions and hypotheses can be advanced at the beginning of the study or as they emerge during a later phase in the research process. When writing mixed methods research questions or hypotheses, pay attention to the order of the research questions. Remember that you want the reader to see these questions in the order that you plan on addressing them in your study. It's a good idea to include at least one research question that addresses the fact that you're using mixed methods. These questions can be written in a variety of ways. I highly recommend, again, that you use the scripts from your book to provide you with specific examples and ways that you can incorporate both methodologies into a research question. As we continue to move through the material in this course, you now have an introduction, a purpose statement, and you're in the process of molding your research questions. Continue to immerse yourself in the text as well as the supplemental content that the module provides. This will give you a better understanding. These instructor videos are really only micro lectures that are intended to just scratch the surface. The real meat can be found in your text, so make sure that you read every sentence of it.